Hi, good evening, everyone. Right. First of all, thank you everyone for taking the time of your evening to join us at this SRS webinar. Right. So just a brief introduction, right, of what's going to happen over the next hour. Right. We will be talking about SRS. Right. Introducing SRS will be our investment analyst Jaleesa. Right, and followed by a sharing session on why you should be investing your SRS with our CIO, Chief Investment Officer, Tai Zhi. Okay, yep. So some administrative matters, right? So if you have any questions, right, feel free to add your question in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom app. Okay, we will answer your questions at the end of the sharing session, right? As long as you input your questions, we can rest assured we will get it to you. We will answer your question as soon as we can. Okay, right. So without further ado, right, I think let's start off with Jaleesa, who will be giving a quick introduction about SRS, right, and some of the tax incentives that comes with contributing to SRS.
Thanks, Nigel. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar today. I'm Jalissa, Wealth Manager at Auto Wealth. So I'm here today to share more about the Supplementary Retirement Scheme, SRS in short, and how we can utilize SRS to maximize our tax savings and minimize tax payables. So without further ado, let me introduce what SRS is about. So SRS is a voluntary savings scheme implemented by the government to encourage individuals to save up for retirement on top of their existing CPF savings. Singaporeans, permanent residents, and foreigners above the age of 18 are eligible to start an SRS account with one of the three SRS operators, DBS, UOB, or OCBC, to grow their retirement funds. Now, you might wonder what are some of the key benefits of opening an SRS account. The first key benefit is tax savings. For every dollar contributed to SRS, you can reduce your taxable income by the same amount. So for example, if I contribute $10,000 today, I'll be able to reduce my taxable income by $10,000 in the following year of assessment. But there is a yearly maximum contribution cap to be aware of. So for Singaporeans and PRs, the max SRS contribution for each year is $15,300. And for foreigners, the yearly cap is set at $35,700. So you might have noticed that foreigners have a higher contribution cap, and this is in recognition of the fact that they have no access to the tax benefits offered by the CPF scheme. Okay, secondly, you can invest these funds in eligible investment vehicles to maximize growth. So invest your funds and do not let it sit idle inside your SRS account, earning only an interest rate of 0.05% per annum. Lastly, investment returns are tax-free before withdrawal, and only 50% of the withdrawals from SRS are taxable at retirement. Okay, so you can meet our very cute Auto Wealth mascot here, Baby Pro, who will show us the power of SRS in slashing taxes. So for context, he is a 33-year-old foreigner who earns $100,000 annually and have lived in Singapore for more than 183 days in the previous calendar year. So he's considered a Singapore tax resident and is taxed under the resident tax rate. So he's not eligible for any other personal reliefs. Now, without SRS, BB Pro's chargeable income is $100,000, and he will need to pay a total of $5,650 in taxes each year. But when he decides to contribute 50% of the max amount, which is $17,850, his chargeable income drops to $82,150, and his tax payable shrinks to around $3,600. So that's $2,050 of tax savings, approximately 36%. Now, if he decides to go all in with 100% SRS contribution, $35,700, his chargeable income drops to $64,300, and he ends up paying just $2,251 in taxes. So that is a 60% tax cut. As you can see, contributing to SRS can bring you significant tax savings. Here, I have a graph that shows the tax payables for 3 scenarios across different income levels. So the blue line is no SRS contribution. Orange is the max contribution for Singaporeans and PRs. Green line represents max contribution for foreigners. From the graph, we can conclude that anyone with an annual income above 60K will achieve tax savings when contributing to SRS. Now, the higher the income, the greater the dollar savings you can achieve with SRS. Therefore, SRS tax relief is particularly advantageous for the high income earners. So this graph illustrates the potential tax savings for Singaporeans or PRs who invest either 50% or 100% of their max contributions into SRS. And here is the tax savings across various income levels for foreigners when contributing to SRS. And a little goes a long way. If BB Pro were to maximize his SRS contribution every year, he would have earned an additional 100K from tax savings after 30 years. So don't underestimate the tax savings you can achieve from SRS contributions. Last but not least, here are some additional considerations when using SRS. First, the total personal income tax relief is 80K for each year of assessment. So if you qualify for other reliefs, please keep this in mind. Next, SRS investments are for the long term. So to make the most out of SRS investments, you will need to stay invested until the statutory retirement age, which is currently 63 years old, or at least 10 years for foreigners, because early withdrawals are subjected to penalties. So consider your short-term financial commitments and ensure you have sufficient liquidity before contributing to your SRS. And lastly, tax calculators from IRAS and DBS are useful if you want to estimate your tax savings. Okay, after contributing to your SRS, you can invest the SRS funds in a wide range of investment options, such as stocks, ETF, mutual funds, bonds, to maximize returns. You'll notice that many options here include the word selected, and this is because not all stocks, REITs, ETF are SRS approved. You can only invest your SRS funds on SRS approved instruments. And if you have strong investment knowledge and sufficient time to monitor markets, these options could work well for you. However, if you lack the expertise or time to manage your portfolio, you may benefit more from professionally managed solutions like AutoWealth SRS portfolios. Now let's move on to talk about withdrawals. You can withdraw from your SRS account without penalty under several scenarios. First, withdrawals are penalty-free on or after the statutory retirement age. And this age is based on the prevailing statutory retirement age at the time of your first contribution. If you were to make your first SRS contribution today, your penalty-free withdrawal age would be the current statutory retirement age, 63 years old. Any subsequent changes in the statutory retirement age will not affect you. Withdrawals on medical grounds upon death or in the event of bankruptcy are also penalty-free. And lastly, foreigners who withdraw in one lump sum after holding the account for at least 10 years can enjoy penalty-free withdrawals. If you need the funds earlier, you can withdraw before retirement age, but it will be considered a premature withdrawal, making the amount 100% taxable and subject to a 5% penalty. Okay, the next thing to note is that SRS has a maximum withdrawal period of 10 years for all SRS members. The 10-year countdown begins from the date of your first penalty-free withdrawal. Once you start withdrawing funds upon reaching the statutory retirement age, you can no longer contribute to your SRS account. So if you want to keep contributing to your SRS account, you can delay your withdrawal. During this 10-year period, you have the flexibility to withdraw funds at any time and in any amount. Lastly, you can enjoy a 50% tax concession on all withdrawals made at or after reaching the statutory retirement age. So for example, if BB Pro contributes 15.3K every year, his contributions would hit 459,000 by the time he hits 63 years old. If he decides to withdraw 10% of that, which is $45,900, 50% of this sum would be exempt from tax. The remaining 50% would be taxed according to his personal income tax rate. Foreigners and PRs withdrawing from their SRS accounts are subjected to a withholding tax, and this acts as a tax credit against their final tax liability. The actual tax will be determined later, and any unused credit will be refunded. So the current default withholding tax is 24%, but you can enjoy a concessionary withholding tax rate of 15% if, number one, your withdrawal amount does not exceed $200,000 in one calendar year, and two, if you have no other income besides SRS withdrawal in that same year. For tax residents, the final tax is based on progressive tax rates, and non-residents will be taxed at either 15% or the progressive rate, whichever is higher. Any excess withholding tax will be refunded. Okay, so how much tax does BB Pro, a tax resident, needs to pay when he withdraws $45,900 at 63 years old? So here is a quick breakdown of how the tax payable is computed. This table is applicable for all tax residents in Singapore. Since only 50% of the withdrawn amount is subject to tax, the chargeable income would be half of $45,900, which equals to $22,950. Based on the income tax table, he does not need to pay tax on the first 20K. The remaining $2,950 will be taxed at 2%, amounting to $59. So what the previous example highlights is that SRS members can withdraw up to $40,000 annually without paying any tax due to these two rules. Number one, only 50% of the withdrawn amount is taxable. Number two, the first $20,000 of chargeable income is tax-free as per the income tax table. So over the 10-year withdrawal period, this allows members to withdraw up to $400,000 tax-free. However, this does not mean you have to limit yourself to 400,000 in your SRS account. If you have more than 400,000 in your SRS account, you can consider spreading your withdrawals evenly over the 10-year period, or use the remaining amount to purchase life annuities to maximize your tax savings. Okay. Now, the previous method is the most ideal exit strategy, but what if you don't plan to retire in Singapore? Here are three withdrawal strategies to implement into your exit plan to maximize your tax savings. Okay, number one, maintain your SRS account at least 10 years before withdrawing to avoid penalties. Number two, withdraw your SRS as a Singapore tax resident before relocating to take advantage of lower tax rates. Number three is to withdraw your SRS in the form of investments to allow your investments to grow without immediate liquidation, giving you more flexibility in timing your withdrawals. Now, some may wonder whether it's better to withdraw in one lump sum or wait until retirement age to spread out the withdrawals. For SRS members with less than $738,580 in your account, we recommend withdrawing in one lump sum before relocating. This option is most advantageous if you can withdraw as a Singapore tax resident, as shown in the graph. However, for non-tax residents, there's no difference in tax liabilities between the two options, but it may be more beneficial to withdraw sooner to avoid future capital gains being taxed at 15%. For those with more than $738,580 in their SRS account, it's better to hold the account until retirement age and spread withdrawals over 10 years to maximize tax savings. So now I'll pass the time to Taichi, who will share more on how to invest your SRS funds wisely.
Thank you for taking time to join us this evening. This is Tai Zi, co-founder and chief investment officer of Auto Wealth. I'll be bringing you through how to grow your wealth and retirement nest through investing in your SRS funds. But first, let me share with you why it is so important to invest your SRS money and why you should start investing it early. Now, according to the SRS statistics, there are about 116,000 SRS accounts with a total contribution of almost 6 billion Singapore dollars. Yet there is about $1.9 billion left in the SRS account as cash. Many SRS users are not maximizing their SRS funds. And here's 3 reasons why you should invest your SRS funds. Now, other than being able to reduce your taxable income and therefore reducing your overall taxes, as Jalissa has reiterated multiple times earlier, you may want to know that the gains on your SRS investments are also tax-free. The second reason is to protect your money from losing its purchasing power due to inflation. Now, currently, Singapore's inflation is close to 2%, which means that you are losing the purchasing power of your hard-earned savings. Therefore, you should invest your SRS funds to achieve an investment return that is higher than the rate of inflation. The third reason is that by leaving your funds in the SRS account and not investing them, these savings only earns a miserable 0.05% interest per annum, right? So by investing your SRS funds, you can potentially earn much higher returns and grow your wealth and retirement nest egg much faster and much better. All right, so here's an illustration to compare what happens when you do not invest your SRS funds and leave them in the SRS bank account vis-a-vis investing them through our most popular Auto Wealth long-term growth portfolio, which is risk level 4. Peter, 33 years old, chooses to contribute 15,300 a year into his SRS account, or a total of 459,000 over a period of 30 years. Now, Peter is unsure how to invest his funds and therefore just simply decides to leave his SRS funds in the SRS bank account. This earns him 0.05% interest per annum. So at the end of a 30-year period, Peter reaches his retirement age and finds that his SRS bank account balance has grown, but unfortunately only to 462,000, right? A return of slightly above $3,000 despite a long period of 30 years. On the other hand, our Auto Wealth mascot BB Pro, right, also does the same, contributes 15,300 a year into the SRS bank account, and or a total of 459,000 over a period of 30 years. What is different is that BB Pro invested its SRS funds into the most popular risk level 4 Auto Wealth long-term growth portfolio. Over time, BB Pro saw its investments grew to a whopping 3.5 million of value. Right? So BB Pro ends up having 3 million more than Peter at the statutory retirement age of 63. So BB Pro can now splurge on anything it likes, whether be it buying the new iPhone that hits the market, traveling the world without breaking a sweat over finances, or living a luxurious retirement lifestyle. Peter, on the other hand, retires with a decent sum, but is constantly confronted with a dilemma between needs and wants due to limited finances. Right? So this huge difference is due to the effects of compounding returns, where BB Pro makes an intelligent decision to invest SRS funds at a higher rate of return. What is so important about compounding returns is that it allows you to earn returns on previously accumulated returns, right? And the effects are increasingly pronounced when you start early and have a long time horizon. I will now share another reference point. In December last year, I started my own SRS portfolio, which is what you now see on screen. So I've made some highlights to this screenshot. If you refer to the first box, I selected the risk level 5, aggressive growth portfolio, right? So this is 100% invested in stocks. There are no bonds in this portfolio. The reason why I selected risk 5 is because I have more than 20 years to invest before I retire, so I can actually take on higher risk. The 10-year backtested annualized return for this portfolio is 11.8%. But you can see from the second box that my portfolio return is actually 23.5% over the last 12 months, right? So by committing to a 1,000 regular monthly investment top up, which is what I've been doing, I am on track for my retirement goal, which is to receive more than $2,000 monthly. This will help to augment my CPF payout upon my retirement. So I hope I've given you a good glimpse of how we can help you through the SRS scheme. Now, this brings us to the key takeaways of tonight's webinar. Number 1, start contributing to your SRS to maximize your tax savings. Every $1 contributed reduces your taxable income by the same amount. Number 2, invest your SRS funds to achieve a higher return. Don't leave your SRS funds idling, which earns you a miserable interest and can't even fight inflation. Thirdly, start early, tonight or this weekend. Compound your investments early and for as long as possible, starting at 33 years old as a reference point, with a maximum $15,300 if you're a Singaporean, or if you are a foreigner, you have more than double that contribution cap. It can accumulate you millions by the time you reach statutory retirement age. Lastly, finish strong. Strategize your SRS withdrawals to maximize your tax savings. Right, I will now pass the mic back to the host.
Okay, thanks, Jalisa. Thanks, Taizhi. Okay, so before we move on to the Q&A, right, and you guys can also take the time and opportunity to input your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom app. Okay, before we move on to answering your questions, yeah, so these are some emails. These are some of the contact information that you can use, right, to contact us. Okay. Okay. Yep. So yeah, moving on to the FAQ, right? So yeah, we do have a couple of questions, right? So let's start off with the first one. Okay, let's see. Okay, is investing SRS safe, right? And what's the risk level like? Okay, so yeah, I think this one might be a suitable question for Taizhi.
Yeah. So I think the key most important thing is whether you have a long enough investment horizon, because markets will move up and down, but generally speaking, most of the time markets do move up, right? So what I'm trying to say here is if you have a long enough investment horizon, that will allow you enough time to make good returns, right? And to stomach any volatility along the way. So in that sense, investing SRS is both safe and also an intelligent choice, right? The risk level is really up to the individual. So different people have different risk appetite, different financial circumstances. I think the simplest way, if you are interested in our Auto Wealth SRS offering, right, is to go to our website, start an SRS account. Now, our website and our platform, right, will actually ask you a series of questions to help us understand you and your investor profile, right? From there, we will recommend a suitable investment portfolio based on your risk profile, right? So it is, in a sense, a very fast and hassle-free manner, even though you may not have, the best knowledge in investments.
Thank you, Taizhi. Okay, the next question I have is here the return of 11.77% is an average of how many years?
Right. I will take this question. So earlier on, I mentioned the last 10 years of this portfolio, right, the long-term growth portfolio, which is, I was referring to the aggressive growth portfolio, which is 100% invested in stocks without any bonds in that portfolio. So it is our highest risk portfolio. We will generally call it moderately high risk, right? That's the risk rating, simply because while it is 100% in equities, they are well diversified over the world, right? So that annualized return of 11.77% is actually the average return over the last 10 years, right? But of course, I've also pointed out that last year, just the last 12 months alone, that portfolio have actually made me, as you saw on my screenshot, right? I think, right, to 24% returns, if I recall correctly. Yeah. So some years you get better returns, some years you get a lower than expected return. But if you have a good enough, long enough horizon, you should get a decent return that is double digit.
Okay, thank you, Taizi. Okay, next question I have. How do I start SRS investment with Auto Wealth? Is it through web or app, right? So I would recommend that the best way to get started is through the link that I have sent over, right, in response to the question, right? autowealth.com.sg/SRS. You can find out more information there. After which you can click on Get Started to create an account, right? Or is a web app, right? After you've signed up and all, right, then you can of course proceed to download the mobile app. Okay, for where the mobile app is where we will get a lot of weekly updates we have, right, in terms of financial markets, how's the market moving, right, and key updates on global events that are happening worldwide. Okay. All right. Next question is how do we engage is the Auto Wealth management? Yes, so I think this is the same question as before, right? If you would like to engage Auto Wealth, we can sign up on our website itself. Okay. All sign-ups, basically, once you sign up, you will be assigned a wealth manager, right? If that's the question that you're asking, all of you will be assigned a wealth manager, and this wealth manager will be guiding you through the whole process, right, in terms of starting an account, right? And if you have any questions with regards to financial related, investing related, you can also ask them, right? All of our wealth managers are all certified professionals. Okay. Okay, next question. If we invest our idle funds, does that impact our ability to withdraw? Right. So yes, I think this one Jaleesa can answer this.
Yeah, I can take this question. So I think as shared earlier, there are penalties for early withdrawals. So it would be ideal if you guys invest funds that you do not plan that you will not have a need for a longer horizon, because if you were to liquidate the funds before you reach the statutory retirement age, or if you're a foreigner, if you were to liquidate before holding the account for 10 years, you will be subjected to a 5% penalty fee. So that will not be very worth it. So yeah, do make sure that you have like a suitable horizon for your funds before investing into SRS.
Okay, thank you, Jaleesa. Okay, next question is the SRS contribution monthly or annually? Which frequency is recommended? Yep. So I think Jaleesa, I think this will be suited for you.
There's no you can do it either ways. You can contribute it monthly or annually. So through Auto Wealth, you can actually make dollar cost average. You can do it dollar cost averaging, and then you can invest your SRS funds every month. Yeah. If you want and you're scared that you forgot to invest, you can deposit a sum into your SRS account first and then do a DCA from Auto Wealth afterwards. Which frequency is recommended? I think ideally monthly would be recommended so that you can kind of like do dollar cost averaging and spread out the risk and lower your risk level, because sometimes if you do a lump sum and if you were to invest like the maximum contribution, there may be too much of a market timing risk. So maybe DCA is more recommended.
Yep. And I think to add on, right, in terms of SRS contribution monthly or annually, if you are looking in the form of reducing your income tax, right, there is no difference between contributing monthly or annually. Okay. Okay, next question is from Alex Phillips, right? Are our existing GPF, not CPF contributions already covered by SRS? If not, can we wrap them in SRS? Okay, yes, this one I think Jaleesa might be better suited to answer this.
Okay, so the GPF, understand that some of you guys are under the GPF scheme. The GPF is a separate scheme and they are not covered by SRS. So SRS funds, you have to go through you have to set our SRS account with the bank operators. Yeah, so it's a totally different scheme.
And sorry, this is Rachel here. I just wanted to add on that for SRS is currently not covered in the corporate pension plans because of the tax reliefs and things that are different between like corporate pension plan as well as the SRS government plan. Yeah, so currently we are not wrapping them in the corporate pension scheme. Okay.
Okay, next question. Just to clarify, if I contribute before the end of the year, okay, this will help me in my tax return for 2024 or the year after. Yeah, I think Jaleesa, can answer this.
Okay, so if you were to contribute before the end of this year, so like 31st December 2024, it's applicable for your 2025 year of assessment. So 2025 year of assessment is actually the assessment for income you have earned in from 1st Jan 2024 to 31st December 2024. Yeah.
Great. All right, next question. What happens to our SRS account if we ever lose the right to live or work in Singapore? EP, cancellation, and so on. Yes. Jaleesa, you want to take this as well? I think it's quite similar to a previous question.
Okay, so let's say if you have to relocate outside of Singapore, right? You can actually hold the SRS account and then withdraw it after your SRS account has reached like at least 10 years. So you can hold the money there and then you continue to let it stay invested. Then you will have the rights to withdraw it penalty free once the account reach at least a minimum age of 10 years. So you don't, if let's say you have relocated, right, you don't have to contribute anymore. In fact, you can choose when you want to contribute, but just make sure you hold that account for at least 10 years before withdrawing so that you can withdraw it penalty free.
Actually, so, all right, next question is, if investment horizon is 15 years or less, what risk level would you advise? I think this one would be Tai-Zhi. Would you like to take this?
Yes. So 15 years is actually a very long time. So I hope when you say or less, you're not talking about like 1 or 2 years, right? Well, the best way is really to go to the AutoWealth platform, answer the series of short questions that we have for you. This would consider things like, how long is your investment horizon? How would you react to hypothetical market events? What's your income generation capability, your net worth, and things like that. So with a very comprehensive view of your financial circumstances and your typical behavior towards investing, right? We will be able to advise you better what kind of risk level and what portfolio to take. Now, barring that, generally speaking, 15 years is a very long horizon. So I would think that generally speaking, you should try to go for something like a risk 4 or risk 5. Risk 4 refers to 80% invested in stocks and 20% invested in bonds, right? And then risk 5 is a full 100% invested in stocks.
Okay. Thank you, Taizhi. Okay. All right, next question we have, if I'm a foreigner and I keep funds in SRS for 10 years, does that mean I can withdraw all tax-free? Jalisa, you wanna take this question?
Okay, yeah. So if you are a foreigner, you can actually withdraw your funds after holding at least 10 years. Okay, but that will only allow you to withdraw it penalty-free, not tax-free. So when you're doing a withdrawal, 50% of it will be taxable, and then 50% of the remaining 50% will be tax-free. Yeah. Then from there, maybe you can reach out to a wealth manager or what to discuss how to maximize your withdrawals.
Okay, next question we have, is the retirement age of 63 enforced? Right? What if we choose to remain invested and not withdraw then? Okay. Yeah, so this one, Taizhi, would it be a question suitable for you?
Sure, I can take that. So currently, the statutory retirement age in Singapore is 63 years old. But I will also want to point out that the government has already announced that it intends to increase the retirement age, right? So if you start Googling, you will find that NTUC and the civil service have already started, plans to raise their own retirement age earlier than the government plans, right? So it's important for me to point out that the age which you are subjected to, right, for the purpose of penalty-free withdrawals will be dependent on the time that you start an SRS account. So if you start today, the retirement age is still 63. Now, if you start procrastinating, to next year or the year after, if the statutory retirement age has been already raised by the Singapore government, then you will be subjected to the new higher statutory retirement age, right? Which means to say you have to delay your plans in terms of withdrawing penalty-free, right? Then to answer your second question, what if we choose to remain invested and not withdraw? Yes, that's your choice, right? Whilst the retirement age is 63 today and can be raised later on, but you decide when you want to withdraw, right? And you also have to bear in mind what Jalisa has just mentioned. Once you start the first withdrawal, the 10-year countdown starts. You have only 10 years to withdraw the rest of your SRS funds out from the SRS bank account, right? So do strategize properly. If you need advice, you can reach out to our wealth managers. All of us are very well versed with SRS and how to optimize the system to your advantage.
Okay. Thank you, Taizhi. Okay, next question. I believe this goes to Taizhi as well. Can you switch the investment product after a few years?
Yes, you can. In fact, technically today, when you start off, let's say with a risk 5 portfolio, right? You could actually technically change the risk level, change the portfolio the next day, right? So it's really up to your choice. But however, we do recommend our clients to take a long-term view, right? Bear in mind what is your risk appetite, right? Do consider what the platform recommends you, right? And try to take risks with a long-term view, right? Do not change it, one day after another or month after another. Do not react to market news, most of the time, from our experience, we see that, sometimes when people see scary news headlines, they tend to take knee-jerk reaction. And when they do so, it's usually when markets have already declined by quite a fair bit. So in the end, what you're doing is you're selling low. And then subsequently, when you realize that markets have started rebounding, right, you started to chase back markets again, then you will be buying high, right? So you will be doing the exact opposite of what an intelligent investor would want to do, right? So I would say that try to take a more long-term view. Do not be swayed by market news or short-term market developments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question we have, right, I think this goes to Jalisa. You mentioned a few banks earlier in the call. Does Auto Wealth provide the same service as DBS, or do we use both in conjunction together?
Okay, so to start an SRS account, right, you have to open it with one of the local banks like DBS, okay, or OCBC, one of the 3 local banks mentioned just now. Okay, after you have funded your SRS funds in their account, you can use numerous platforms like Auto Wealth to invest those funds. So to answer your question, you will have to use it in conjunction.
Okay. Next questions. All right. Is there a difference between products that can be invested in as a foreigner versus a Singapore PR citizen? I think the title will be able to answer this better.
Yes. So technically, there's no difference in terms of the investment product. To invest SRS funds, you can only invest in SRS approved investment instruments, right? And there is no distinction between whether you are a Singaporean or a foreigner. That universe of SRS approved investment instruments are the same.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next question. I think this goes to Jalisa. Right, do we get charged on capital gains that are invested through SRS, meaning the tax benefit from investing through SRS might get wiped out, right, due to a compounding effect?
Okay, so you do get charged on capital gains. Okay, I would say that capital gains are like taxable when you are withdrawing, but there are several ways to minimize those tax, and also to if you are considered tax resident when you are retiring and you spread it out over 10 years and withdraw 40,000 per year, you can actually get to invest all of the SRS funds tax-free. Yeah, so capital gains are kind of taxable, but then there are ways to actually minimize the tax, and there are also ways to withdraw it tax-free if you were to strategize your withdrawals.
Yes, so just to add, for the avoidance of doubt, capital gains are not specifically taxable, right? But those gains, right, form part of your SRS savings and your portfolio. So when you withdraw those funds, right, you may get taxed depending on what's the amount that we withdraw. So as Jalisa has shared with you guys earlier on, right, the first 40,000 of income in Singapore is non-taxable, right? So if presuming you have already retired, not earning any other income, right? So every year you can withdraw 40,000 without paying a single cent of tax, and you can, do the same for the rest of the years, right? So, like Jalisa has mentioned, there are some good strategies how you can optimize the system, right, to your advantage. And please feel free to reach out to our wealth managers who can advise you better.
Thank you both. Okay, next question. Can we get a recording of this session sent to us? Okay, so yes, we will be sending over, we'll be sharing a recording of this session to all registrants. Okay. Okay, next question. is there a tool to help model the tax benefits versus penalties in a number of scenarios? I'm asking because we don't get. Oh, sorry. We have we have a question earlier on. First, let me answer this question first. Do we? Okay, sorry, that question is answered. The next question is there a tool to help model the tax benefits versus penalties in a number of scenarios? I'm asking because we don't always have control over when we leave Singapore. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I think from my understanding, we currently do not have such a tool. So my suggestion here is perhaps we can reach out to a wealth manager. The wealth manager will be able to customize a response directly to your situation. Right? I think that would be the best way forward for you. Okay.
Yes, I'll probably also add that many of our clients are actually based overseas. So we do have overseas-based clients, right? And they use our platform and they still have access to our wealth managers, right? So it's distance is really not an issue here. Whether you are based in Singapore or based in a foreign country, you always have access to our wealth managers who are just one WhatsApp away.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. What happens if you make a withdrawal after 10 years and you no longer are a tax resident in Singapore? Right, let's say I'm a tax resident in the Netherlands, I will need to pay income tax on the withdrawal. How to avoid double taxation? Okay. Yes. Jalisa, do you want to take this question?
Okay. So if you withdraw after 10 years and you are no longer a tax resident in Singapore, by right you will get charged. The tax rate for Singapore is either 15% or the progressive tax rate, depending on the amount that you are withdrawing. Whichever is higher, that will be the tax that you have to pay to IRAS. Okay. In regards to double taxation, we are not able to advise the taxation laws for Netherlands. So you might want to consult a local tax advisor over there. But I would say the best withdrawal strategy would be to, if you were to relocate, right, is to actually withdraw it in one lump sum before you relocate out of Singapore, so that you can withdraw at a tax SG tax precision rate.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Okay, is there any way to make it all tax-free? Does that only happen at 63? Okay, yeah, this one I think, Jalisa, I think this is for you as well.
Okay. Okay, I think previously we mentioned that you don't have to withdraw at 63 years old. You can actually choose to withdraw anytime after you hit the statutory retirement age, which is currently 63 years old. There is also a way to make it tax-free, as Taicha has mentioned earlier, which is that the first 40,000 that you withdraw every year is actually tax-free. So if you were to spread and you have a withdrawal period of 10 years, so essentially it means that you are able to withdraw $400,000 tax-free. Because 40,000 times 10 years, that is $400,000 tax-free if you are like a tax resident. Yeah.
And also to add that beyond 400,000, what you can do is to purchase an annuity before the end of 10 years. So that annuity will then pay you after that 10 years, right, for whatever period of time that you so desire, right? As long as each year your income is less than 40,000, it's basically tax-free.
Okay. Yeah, so the next question is actually pretty similar. Probably the only difference is that if I am not a tax resident of Singapore at the time I withdraw funds from SRS, what would my tax liability be? Yeah, I think I think, Jalisa, I think this is also for you, right? It's, I would say pretty much similar to the previous question. Only difference is if you are not a tax resident.
Yes, okay. If you are not a tax resident, the tax rate will be either 15% or the progressive tax rate. Whichever is higher, that will be the tax rate that you will have to pay.
Okay. The next question. As a foreigner that will retire outside of Singapore, what actions should I take to withdraw my SRS? And is there any other way to avoid tax on the 50% of SRS withdrawal amount? Yeah, I think, Jalisa,
Okay, yeah. So as a foreigner that retire outside. Okay, so I think we just now share 3 tips for to maximize your withdrawals as a foreigner. So the first one is to maintain the account for at least 10 years so that you don't get charged for the 5% penalty free. And also try your best to withdraw as a Singapore tax resident if possible. So that you will get to enjoy the SG, you will still get to enjoy the SG tax resident rate instead of paying the non-resident tax rate. And you can also withdraw your funds, SRS funds, in the form of investments when you're relocating so that you don't have to liquidate immediately. You can allow them to grow and then choose and time your liquidation. Is there any way to avoid tax on 50% of SRS withdrawal amount? Sadly, no, because that's the so 50% of the amount will be taxed, and then 50%, the other half of the 50% will be exempt from tax. So there are ways to minimize the tax payables, but you will be taxed on 50% of the withdrawal amount.
okay. Thank you. Okay. Next question. Right, I started SRS 12 years ago in 2012. Are you able to advise, please, what was the statutory retirement age then? I assume that will be applicable for me. Jalisa, do you have any idea? Yeah, because I understand the retirement age changes along the way. Yeah.
Yes, so I think from my recollection of memory, we first started off the retirement age at 62, right? So if you have started SRS 12 years ago, I think there's a good chance the statutory retirement age that will apply to you will be 62, right? And just for completeness sake, the statutory retirement age will be raised, right, as I mentioned, to I think 64 years old from 1st July 2026. Yes.
Okay. Next question. Okay, does Autowealth get compensation from us or from the fund managers? Right. So yes, Autowealth, we do charge a platform fee. I think Taichi will be able to advise on that.
Yes. So our SRS portfolios, for our SRS portfolio offerings, we charge 0.4% of the assets that we manage for you. So I'll give you a simple illustration. If let's say you invest $10,000 today, right? Annually, you'll be paying around $40, right? Or if you divide by 12 months, right, that will be probably cheaper than a normal meal that you eat at a hawker center.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay, next question. For withdrawals, are they considered on an annual calendar year basis or the government treats the year differently? Example, from April to March, right? Okay, I think this one, Jalisa might be better to answer this.
Okay, yes. It's actually okay. Sorry. Rachel, can you click move down one slide? Yeah. I'll show you the. Sorry, what? Up 2 slides. Yeah, so this is so this is how the withdrawal period is like. So for example, if I were to withdraw on 1st April 2025, then the 1 year period would be from 1st April 2025 to 31st March 2026. And then the end of my 10-year period will be 31st March 2035.
Jalisa, I think the question is also in the context of taxation. So from a tax perspective, it's always viewed from a calendar year basis. So that's the same when you contribute to the SRS scheme, right? It always runs 1st January to 31st December. Right, what Jalisa have just mentioned in this slide is actually the 10th year countdown, right? When you make the first withdrawal, you have a 10-year period to fully withdraw all your funds from the SRS bank account.
So I think just to confirm, this means that if you make a SRS withdrawal in January 2025 and December 2025, it will be considered, right? A total of 2 withdrawals for the year, right? Is that correct?
Yes, so those the withdrawal in January and the withdrawal in December will both be considered as part of your income.
Okay, understood. Okay, so in light of time right now, time now is 8:31. Okay, we will only be able to answer one last question before, we will end the session. So, yeah, I think what's going to happen is that if you have any unanswered questions that you would like us to follow up with, right, please feel free to drop us a contact through our WhatsApp or an email. Okay. Okay, last question. What is the last date to make use of for the 40,000 withdrawal per year? Is it 31st December or is there a notice period required? I think, Jalisa, I think this one you can take this thing pretty much similar to the previous question.
Yeah, I think it's the same one as the previous question. So whatever that is withdrawn in a calendar year will be considered one withdrawal. The total sum will be added to your income, your SRS withdrawal income for the calendar year. Yeah, so just make sure in one calendar year, if you want to make use of the 40,000 tax-free withdrawal, then you have to withdraw it in the same calendar year. And make sure that you don't exceed 40,000 in that calendar year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so yes, okay, once again, right, thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar, right? We really appreciate your time this evening. So what's going to happen, we will be following up by sharing with you the session recording so that if you have anything that you want to recap on, you can feel free to do so, right? On the other hand, right, if you have any burning questions that you like answered, right, please feel free to contact us via WhatsApp. Rachel, maybe you can show the contact slide again so that anyone who has any questions that have been unanswered can contact us. Okay. Yeah, with that, we've come to the end of the webinar, right? Thank the panelists, Taizu and Jalisa for sharing with us, right? And we thank you for your time as well. Okay. Good night, everybody.